The night had sunk deep into the village. Quiet, cold, and strangely still, as if time itself had paused to watch Amina's life unfold. The narrow dirt road stretched into darkness. No lights, no footsteps. Nothing but the soft whisper of the wind brushing through the tall grass. Amina walked slowly, holding her little daughter Mariam's hand as they made their way home. Every step felt familiar, but every worry felt new. Her shoulders carried the weight of the whole world, yet she kept moving because mothers don't stop, even when everything else does. Mariam tugged Amina's hand gently. "Mom, will we have milk tomorrow?" The question was innocent, but it cut through Amina like a blade. She forced a small smile. "Yes, sweetheart. Tomorrow will be better, I promise." But inside, her heart trembled. She wasn't lying. She was hoping, and then everything changed. Amina froze in her tracks. There, on the side of the lonely road, sat a little boy, barefoot, wearing a torn shirt. His knees pulled up to his chest as if he was trying to hold himself together. Dust covered his hands, his face, but it was his eyes that stopped Amina's breath, wide, lost, and painfully empty. She walked toward him slowly. "Hey, sweetheart. What are you doing out here? Where are your parents?" Silence. The boy didn't blink, didn't move. He just stared at the ground. A minute passed. Then, in the softest, trembling voice, he whispered, I don't know." Amina felt something inside her break. A child this small, alone in the dark, unable to remember who he was. Mariam stepped closer, her tiny fingers wrapping around the boy's hand. "Mom, he's scared. Let's take him home." Amina hesitated. Her house was small. Her food was already too little. Life was a battle she barely survived every day. But the boy looked up at her with eyes that seemed to be begging for just one thing. "Safety, come," she said softly. "You can stay with us tonight." He rose slowly, like he had no strength left, and slipped his hand into hers. That night, Amina placed her own dinner into the boy's plate. He stared at it for a long moment, then ate it like he'd never tasted real food before. She asked him gently, "Do you remember your name?" The boy shook his head. "Nothing. I don't remember anything." Amina placed her hand on his hair, her voice warm and steady. "That's okay. When you can't remember who you are, a mother gives you a place to belong. For now, you're my son." He looked up at her, confused, emotional, fragile. But for the first time that night, he didn't look afraid, Amina thought. She was simply helping a lost child. She didn't know she was bringing a storm into her life. Because the boy she picked up from that quiet roadside wasn't just an abandoned child. He was the missing heir of one of the city's richest and most powerful families, and they were already looking for him. In that silent night, in that cold village air, Amina unknowingly stepped into a fate she could never have imagined. A fate that would drag her from poverty into danger, from simplicity into secrets, and from a quiet life into the heart of a powerful man's world. And it all began with one lost boy on one lonely road on one unforgettable night. Morning came slowly, with a pale sunlight crawling across the floor of Amina's small village home. The boy slept curled up beside Mariam, both of them breathing softly, as if they had always belonged to each other. Amina stood in the doorway watching them, feeling a strange warmth she hadn't felt in years. Something like hope, but softer, quieter. She whispered to herself, "Who are you, little one? And where did you come from?" The boy woke up with a start, eyes wide, almost frightened. Amina knelt beside him. "It's okay," she said gently. "You're safe here." He stared at her, as if he wasn't sure whether to believe that. Amina made the simplest breakfast she could, half a piece of bread for herself, the bigger pieces for the children. The boy hesitated before eating, glancing at her as though asking permission. When she nodded, he devoured it slowly, savoring every bite like it was precious. She realized then just how long this child must have been wandering. Amina swallowed hard, unsure whether to answer the man's question. His voice wasn't harsh, but it carried something sharp underneath, Fear, disbelief, maybe even grief. She didn't know him, yet his eyes held the same urgency she once saw in mothers searching for their missing children. She stepped slightly in front of Adam, protective without even thinking. I found him near my village," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. He was lost, alone. He didn't remember anything about himself. The CEO's jaw clenched, and for a moment, he looked like someone trying to hold back years' worth of emotions. "What village?" he asked. "A small one outside the valley," she replied. "It's far from here." He nodded slowly, as if connecting invisible threads in his mind. People around them stared, confused, whispering as they saw their powerful CEO shaken. For the first time, Amina didn't understand why this stranger seemed so affected by the boy, why his eyes softened each time he glanced at Adam, why his breath kept catching. She gently nudged the children. "Let's go. Come on." The CEO stepped forward instinctively. "Wait," Amina turned sharply. "Sir, please, we don't want any trouble." "No trouble," he said quietly. I want to help." She had heard that before, many times, and every time, it was a lie. But this man's eyes didn't look like a liar's. They looked like someone standing at the edge of something life-changing. Still, she stayed cautious. "Help how?" she asked. He exhaled slowly. "Come inside. Let's talk," she hesitated. The doors to the towering corporate building, the ones she could never step through, were now opening for her. People inside stared in confusion as security waved her and the kids in like honored guests. Amina didn't feel honored. She felt scared. The man led them to a private meeting room. The space smelled of leather and coffee, the kind of place where important decisions were made. The children sat beside her, their small hands gripping hers tightly. The CEO sat across from them, elbows on his knees, staring at Adam with eyes that shimmered with memories only he understood. "What's your name?" he asked gently. Adam looked at Amina first, as if asking permission to speak. "It's okay," she whispered. "Adam," he answered softly. The CEO's expression cracked. He whispered the name again under his breath, as if tasting the pain of it. "My son, his name was Adam." Amina's heart stilled. Her breath caught. Her fingers tightened around the chair. Adam blinked, confused. "I had that name before?" The CEO nodded, emotion tightening his throat. "Yes, you did." Amina felt her world tilt. She tried to speak, but nothing came out. The CEO took a deep breath, steadying himself. 2 years ago," he began slowly, "I lived near your village. Back then, I was no one. I had nothing. My wife had left. My life was falling apart. And one night, my son wandered outside during a storm." Amina felt a cold shiver travel up her spine. "We searched everywhere," he continued. "Every road, every field, every home. I begged people to help me. But I had no money, no status. No one cared." His voice cracked. The pain was raw. "I thought he drowned, or worse. I thought I lost him forever." Amina covered her mouth with her hand. She looked at Adam, safe, warm, alive. The boy she had fed, protected, loved. But the CEO wasn't angry. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't accusing. He was breaking right in front of her. He wiped a tear quickly, embarrassed to be so exposed. "You said you found him by the road?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes. That night we had a storm too." He let out a painful laugh. "Then he must have walked until he collapsed." His voice choked again. Silence filled the room. Amina finally found her voice. "Sir, I didn't know he was yours. I swear I didn't hide him." "I know," the CEO said immediately. "I can see that. Anyone can see that. You saved him. You raised him. You gave him a life I thought I'd lost forever." His sincerity shook her. She had expected blame, anger, maybe even legal threats. But he looked at her like she had given him back the air to breathe. Then something changed. A shadow crossed his face. Conflict. "Uncertainty? Worry? What now?" Amina whispered. He looked down at his hands. "He's my son. I've searched for him for 2 years. And now He exhaled slowly. Now I find him in the arms of someone who gave him the love he deserved. The emotional weight dragged on both of them. Amina felt fear coil inside her. Fear of losing the child she'd raised. The child who called her mother. Adam looked between them, confused. "Why are you sad?" The CEO forced a small smile. "Because life is complicated, kid." Then he turned to Amina. His voice softened, deepened. "You came here looking for a job, didn't you?" She nodded quietly. He rose to his feet. "You have one now," Amina blinked. "What?" "Clean the offices. Work full-time. I'll pay you well. Enough for both children." She stared at him, stunned. "Sir, why?" His answer was simple, honest, and heavy with gratitude. "Because you raised my son when the world turned its back on me." Amina's throat tightened. She lowered her head, overwhelmed. The children hugged her legs, excited and unaware of the storm swirling around them. But the conflict wasn't over. It had only begun, because every truth the CEO had revealed was about to lead them into a deeper, more painful revelation. The portrait on his office wall, the life he built after losing everything, the past Amina never imagined she was connected to. All of it was waiting for her. Just beyond the next door she would open, Amina did not expect the world to shift from under her feet in a single breath, but that is exactly what happened when the CEO led her down the quiet hallway toward his private office. He walked slowly, as if bracing himself for something he wasn't sure he could handle. Amina followed behind him, the children close at her side. Each step echoed with a tension that tightened her stomach. She could sense the storm building, but she didn't know its shape yet. When he pushed open the door to his office, the air inside felt heavier, almost sacred. The room was large, polished wood floors, tall glass windows overlooking the city, but none of that mattered. The only thing Amina saw was the portrait hanging on the far wall. A woman, beautiful, soft eyes, a calm smile. Adam froze at the sight of it. Amina felt his small hand slip from hers as he slowly walked toward the painting. "She looks like me," he whispered. Amina's heart pounded. The resemblance was undeniable. The child's hair, the shape of his cheeks, the way his eyes tilted slightly when he smiled. It was all reflected in the face of the woman in the portrait. The CEO stepped beside Adam, his voice trembling. "That's your mother." Amina felt something collapse inside her, a silent implosion that stole her breath. The CEO, this powerful man standing tall before the world, looked smaller, more fragile as he stared at the portrait. "She died the night you went missing," he said gently. "Our car crashed in the mountains. I tried to save her, but she—" His voice broke completely, not in anger, not in weakness, but in something deeper, regret so old it had fossilized inside him. Adam didn't understand death, not in the way adults do. His confusion carved innocence into the painful moment. "Is she sleeping?" he asked. The CEO knelt down, wiped his eyes quickly, then shook his head. "No, son, she's not coming back." Adam's lips trembled. "Will she be mad that I forgot her?" That shattered Amina more than anything. The CEO pulled Adam into his arms, holding him tightly. "Never. She'd be grateful you're alive. She'd thank the woman who took care of you." Amina looked away. The grief in the room was too raw, too intimate. She didn't belong in such a sacred space between a father, a son, and a memory. But the truth didn't stop there. The deeper storm was yet to break. Because on the desk lay an old photograph, one Amina recognized instantly. Her breath caught. She stepped closer, her legs trembling. It was a picture of the CEO, standing beside her father, both smiling. Both younger, both unaware of how their fates would tangle years later. Amina's hand flew to her mouth. The CEO turned and saw her staring at the photo. His expression shifted, recognition striking his face like lightning. "You know him?" Amina nodded slowly, her voice barely a whisper. "That's my father." The room felt too quiet, too still. The CEO's eyes widened with disbelief. "Your father is Kareem?" Amina's knees nearly buckled when she heard her father's name spoken with such familiarity. "You knew him?" He ran a shaking hand through his hair. He saved my life during the civil conflict, twice. When I had nothing, he fed me. When I had no home, he gave me one. I owed everything to him. Amina's throat tightened. You disappeared. He looked for you. I didn't disappear, the CEO said, voice cracking with old pain. I was taken. By the same militia that burned your village. Amina staggered back, the floor tilting beneath her. Memories flashed, her father carrying her through smoke, her mother screaming, the night everything she loved turned into fire. The CEO looked like he'd been punched. You survived? She nodded numbly. He got us out, but he didn't make it. The CEO pressed a hand to his mouth, emotion flooding him. Your father died because of me. Amina forced herself to breathe. No, he died saving his family. But he saved me first, the CEO whispered. And I never repaid him. Not once. A single tear escaped down his cheek. He walked toward her slowly, his voice low, heavy. Now I finally understand why God put you in my path. You saved my son, the same way your father once saved me. Amina felt her heart twist. She wanted to be angry, to scream, to blame him for surviving when her father didn't. But she saw something in his eyes, something raw and human. A weight he carried alone for years. And the truth sank in like a stone. Their lives weren't connected by coincidence. They were bound by sacrifice, loss, and unfinished debts. Adam walked between them, holding both of their hands. Are you both crying? Neither answered, because a new conflict had risen. Not between them, but inside them. The CEO turned to Amina. I want to do right by you, by your father, by our children. Our? She repeated softly. He looked at her with a truth that stripped away all the titles, wealth, and walls he had built around himself. Adam is your son in every way except blood, he said. And the little girl, she is part of your heart. I won't take them from you. Amina felt tears blur her vision. But I'm his father, he continued. And you're the only mother he knows. The reality hit them both like a tidal wave. There was no simple ending here. If Adam stayed with Amina, he would lose the life his mother dreamed of for him. If Adam returned to his father, he would lose the woman who raised him. And if Amina stayed by the CEO's side, she didn't dare finish the thought. The CEO stepped closer, voice trembling. We have to find a way to stay together. All of us, or we'll break him. Amina felt her entire world tremble, because for the first time, she realized she wasn't just fighting for the children. She was fighting her own heart. The past had finally revealed itself. And now the future, uncertain, terrifying, and powerful, was waiting for her answer. For several hours after the truth unraveled, silence became the third presence in the CEO's office, thick, heavy, and full of questions none of them knew how to answer. The world outside continued its normal rhythm, cars moving, people working, lights blinking across the skyline, unaware that 3 lives had been rewritten in a single afternoon. Amina stood by the large window, her palms pressed lightly against the cool glass. Below, the city looked impossibly vast, a place full of strangers, full of stories that began and ended without anyone ever hearing them. But her story, she realized, had never been hers alone. It had always been woven with other threads. Her father's, Adam's, her daughter's, and now the CEO's. Behind her, the CEO sat on the sofa, elbows on his knees, fingers tangled in his hair. Adam was sleeping beside him, curled up with his head resting on his father's lap. Exhaustion had pulled the child under quickly, as if his small heart could only take so much in one day. Amina watched them quietly. Adam's chest rose and fell in a peaceful rhythm, so peaceful it hurt. She had held him through fevers, nightmares, hunger, and confusion. She had been his anchor when his world was nothing but blank spaces. And now, seeing him sleeping against his father felt like watching him drift away from her shore. The CEO lifted his gaze slowly. Please sit, he said softly. Amina moved toward him and lowered herself into the chair opposite the sofa. For a long moment, neither spoke. They were both waiting, for courage, for clarity, for the right words to come. Finally, He broke the silence. I don't want to take him from you. His voice shook with sincerity. You raised him. You saved him. I could spend every day of my life repaying you, and it still wouldn't be enough. Amina swallowed hard. You're his father. He belongs with you. No, he said immediately, the word coming out with painful force. He belongs with both of us. Her breath hitched. She didn't know whether he meant it literally or emotionally. Her mind raced with possibilities she was too afraid to touch. He looked down at Adam's tiny hand resting over his own. He lost his mother. Then he lost his memory. If he loses you now, his voice cracked. I don't think he will survive another loss. The truth hung between them, heavy and trembling. Amina lowered her eyes. What are you asking me? He drew a deep, unsteady breath. I want you to stay, not as an employee, not as a caretaker, but as part of our family. Amina's heart jolted, sharply, painfully. She shook her head, overwhelmed. You can't say things like that, not now, not when everything is so fresh. I'm not talking about romance, he said gently. I'm not asking you for anything you're not ready to give. I'm asking you to stay in our lives. Permanently. Her throat tightened. She looked at Adam, sleeping peacefully, his face still soft with childhood innocence. If you stay, the CEO continued, he gets to keep his memories of you. If you leave, he'll feel abandoned. Again, Amina stared at her hands. She had always known the day would come when Adam's real family would claim him. She had told herself she would be strong when that moment arrived. But strength was different when heartbreak had a face. I need time, she whispered. He nodded, understanding. Take all the time you need. I won't pressure you. But fate did not give her much time, because the next morning, everything changed. The sun had barely risen when Amina opened her tiny apartment door to find the CEO standing outside. His eyes were red-rimmed, his breathing uneven. It's Adam, he said urgently. He woke up screaming your name. Amina felt her world tilt. She rushed past him, forgetting her shoes, forgetting everything but her children. When she arrived at the CEO's home, she found Adam sitting on the floor, knees pulled to his chest, tears streaming down his cheeks. I thought you left, he sobbed when he saw her. I thought you were gone forever. Amina knelt and pulled him into her arms. He clung to her as if she were the last stable thing in his universe. The CEO watched quietly, his expression twisting with something between pain and hope. He barely slept. He kept asking if you were coming back. Amina stroked Adam's hair, whispering softly, soothingly. She looked up at the CEO. He needs consistency, she said. He can't handle sudden changes. And neither can I, he admitted in a low voice. Amina's breath caught. He wasn't declaring love. He wasn't demanding anything. But there was something undeniably human in his eyes, something that belonged to both vulnerability and courage. She looked around the large, empty home. It was elegant, polished, and cold. There was no warmth without the sound of children. No life without chaos. No meaning without connection. Her daughter toddled into the room, sleepy-eyed, and climbed into her lap. Adam immediately wrapped an arm around her, instinctively treating her like a sister. And in that moment, Amina understood something. This wasn't his home without them. This wasn't her home without them. And maybe, just maybe, this could become their home together. She looked up slowly. If I stay, things will change. I want them to, he replied. Amina hesitated. People will talk. Let them, he said. They don't know what we've survived. She took a deep breath. And if I stay, you must promise one thing. Anything. Adam will always know that I didn't replace his mother, and my daughter will never feel like she's second. The CEO's eyes softened. I swear it. It wasn't a romantic vow. Not yet. It was something more sacred. An agreement between two people who had walked through fire, carrying children in their arms. A new kind of family formed quietly that morning. Not born from marriage, or blood, or tradition, but from shared loss and shared love. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months. Slowly, their lives wove together like threads of the same. Tapestry, Amina became the grounding energy of the home. The CEO became the stability she had never known. Adam began remembering pieces of his past. Without fear, her daughter found safety and joy in the new household, and for the first time in years, laughter returned to the halls. One evening, months later, the CEO stood with Amina on the balcony. The children were asleep inside, the city glowing beneath them. He looked at her, something warm and unspoken shining in his eyes. "We started as strangers," he said softly, "but I think fate knew exactly what it was doing." Amina exhaled slowly, her heart steady now. Maybe it did. He offered her his hand, not to claim her, not to rush her, but to simply be by her side. She didn't hesitate. She placed her hand in his, and for the first time in a long time, she felt whole. The broken child was healed. The grieving father had hope again. The woman who lost everything had finally found a home. Their story didn't end with a twist. It ended with peace, and sometimes peace is the greatest climax of all. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months, and slowly, life reshaped itself around him. Amina gave him a temporary name, Adam, because she didn't want to call him boy forever. Miriam treated him like a brother from the first moment, holding his hand everywhere they went, sharing her toys, even the ones she never liked to share. Adam started smiling again, laughing again, sleeping without fear, but there was always something in his eyes. A quiet emptiness, a memory on the other side of a closed door he could never open. Amina tried everything to help him remember, asking gentle questions, pointing out places, showing him other families, but nothing brought back even a fragment of his past. And then, after nearly 2 years of raising him like her own, Amina's life hit the breaking point. Food became scarce. Work became impossible to find in the village. Every night she counted coins with trembling hands, hoping they would somehow stretch into the next day. They didn't. One evening, while the children slept, she sat alone and whispered into the dark, "I can't fail them. I won't." The next morning, she packed their few belongings into a worn bag and held both children's hands as they walked out of the village, leaving behind the only place she'd ever known. Her steps were slow but determined. She didn't know what waited for them in the city, only that it had to be better than watching her children go hungry. The city swallowed them fast. Loud streets, towering buildings, and crowds that moved like waves, never stopping. Amina searched for work everywhere. Restaurants, shops, cleaning services. Every door she knocked on closed just as quickly. No experience, no openings, no luck. Days passed. The little money she had vanished. She found herself skipping meals so the children could eat. Her hands shook from exhaustion, but her heart refused to break. Still, reality was pushing hard. One afternoon, after another failed attempt to find a job, Amina sank down on the steps outside a massive corporate building. Glass walls, marble floors, a place so far from her world it felt like a dream she didn't belong in. She covered her face with her hands. "I'm trying. God knows I'm trying." Miriam hugged her. Adam stood silently beside them, watching her with eyes wiser than his age. Then the street suddenly shifted. Engines hummed. People stepped aside. A line of luxury black cars turned the corner, gliding toward the building like shadows moving with purpose. The security guards straightened. Employees paused. It was clear someone important, very important, had arrived. Amina wiped her tears quickly and pulled the children close. The cars passed her, then stopped. The back door of the lead car opened. A man stepped out, tall, sharply dressed, carrying an air of power that made people instinctively straighten their backs. His presence didn't just command attention, it owned it. He walked toward the building, then slowed, then stopped entirely. His gaze had fallen on Adam. His expression changed, confusion first, then shock, then something deeper, heavier, almost painful. Amina didn't understand why the stranger kept staring at her boy, why his eyes widened, why his breath caught, why his steps hesitated like the ground had shifted beneath him. But she felt it. Something was wrong. Something was happening. Something she couldn't yet name. She stood up quickly. Protective, instinctive. "Kids, come close." The man took a slow step toward them, studying Adam's face as if he were looking at a ghost. Adam stared back, nervous but curious. The tension in the air thickened, electric, strange, impossible to define. Then the man spoke, his voice tight, almost breaking. "Where did you find that boy?" Amina froze. Her heart began to pound. She couldn't explain why, but a storm had just arrived. One she had unknowingly been walking toward for 2 long years, and she had no idea that the man standing in front of her was the boy's father and the CEO of the very building she was sitting beside.